the horror corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen. This week we are doing Food for Thought. This is a series I do where I kind of just introduce a random topic and I discuss it and give my opinions, and I ask you guys to give your opinions in the chat and we'll have a discussion. And one of the first episodes I did was called The Perception of Film Critics. And that plays heavily into the topic we're going to discuss today, and that is Chris Stuckman, one of the biggest YouTubers in the film discussion world of YouTube. And he's someone that I was always a fan of, and he's kind of one of the people that influenced me to become a YouTuber. Yeah, among a lot of other people, but he's certainly one of them. He's someone that I respect his opinion, and I think he's good at what he does. He certainly does his research. He's very intelligent and well-spoken, and I admire that. He's not someone that does these crazy videos with wild graphics, and no, it's just him kind of sitting in front of his DVD collection and talking about movies, and that's what I love. Now, whether he's an actual film critic is something I guess that's up for debate. I always did consider him a film critic because, what I consider to be a true film critic is someone that sees every movie that comes out every week, and does a film review on it and gives his critique on the film, whether it's good or bad or whatever the hell it was. It's just a film that came out that week, and their job is to talk about it. To me, that's what a professional film critic is, and I always kind of considered him to be one of the true film critics of YouTube. There's a lot of YouTubers out there that I would consider professional film critics, and I feel like he always was, but I guess he doesn't really feel the same way now because he did a video called I Have to Talk About This, and the subject was Madam Web, the film that came out recently, and that's one of the Spider-Verse kind of without Spider-Man movies. They're just kind of these solo superhero films about these particular characters that exist in the Spider-Man universe. Which is, I always thought was kind of strange that Spider-Man is actually not a part of these films. They're just like kind of these characters from the Spider-Man world, but at any rate, these are characters that I am kind of interested in, but these films have not gone over very well. Started with Venom, and Venom Let There Be Carnage, and Morbius. They got Kraven the Hunter coming out soon, and they got Madam Web. And Madam Web has just been crucified by critics lately, It has not gone over well at all. But Chris Stuckman decided not to actually review the film, but to actually talk about the involvement of film studios and how they can kind of take over a film and get in the way of the director's vision and the writer's visions of the film and the cast's vision of the film and how they feel the character should be presented and portrayed in, and that can lead to a film being terrible, And he feels that's the case with Madam Web and all these Spider-Man universe films. And not just that, but films in general. So that's why he feels he does not want to actually do reviews on films that he may not like anymore. So he's not just going to review every movie anymore. He's just going to talk about films that he enjoys. So he's more of a film enthusiast now, and that's kind of what I was always considered myself to be. I've never considered myself to be a film critic by any means. I just kind of talk about film. I just love to talk about film, and I talk about films that I love, like the Halloween franchise, and the Hammer films, and mainly horror, of course. But yeah, so I just talk about horror and the films that I love and stuff like that. I'm more of a film enthusiast. But I do film reviews, and I always like to give my honest perception of the film, even if there's some things that I didn't like about the film. I will point that out, though. I have actually done a couple of negative reviews, but yeah, I certainly don't consider myself a film critic by any means. I'm just enthusiast. But yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I do have a great respect for film critics and what they do, and I think a lot of people don't, I feel like they work hard at what they do. You think it's easy to sit and watch every piece of crap that comes out every week and have to report on it and write a whole thesis about it and discuss in great detail a film that may be a complete piece of garbage, and you have to write a review on it or do a YouTube video review about it, That's pretty tough, And one thing about film critics I admire too is they do their research, They're not just these jabronis that just give their thoughts on a movie that don't know anything about film. No, most film critics are like film historians, they study film. They read books about films, about the making of films, about directors, about actors. They read all those books and they watch films all the time. They're obsessed with films, and so they know something about films, even though they may not be directors or actors or screenwriters. But usually they're writers, though. They do their research. They're well spoken. They're intelligent. So I respect that. I always had a great respect of film critics. And yeah, I always kind of considered Chris Stuckman to be one of those. Like Jeremy Johns is another one. I always enjoyed his channel. I always enjoyed like the Screen Junkies and people like that. I like guys like Dan Merle. I consider him to be a film critic as well. Yeah, people like that. So yeah, I have a great respect for film critics, but do you guys consider Chris Stuckman to be a film critic? Or do you think he should just be able to talk about whatever he wants because it's his channel? That's another thing to discuss, isn't it? Because with my channel in particular, and obviously I'm just a tiny little speck, I'm not even on the radar when it comes to people like Chris Stuckman and Jeremy Johns. I'm just a tiny little YouTuber. But yeah, I kind of just do whatever the hell I want on my channel, I do random stuff, I don't just do film reviews. I talk about pro wrestling, I talk about heavy metal music, I do live streams talking about movies, I do all kinds of stuff. I don't just do film reviews, so yeah. But do you consider someone like Chris Stuckman to be a professional film critic? And that's kind of something that's up for debate, and I guess he doesn't consider himself to be, so, Now, as I said, I feel like the job of a film critic is someone that goes to the movies and sees every movie that comes in. Not just horror movies like I do, but every single movie that comes out. No matter what genre it is. Drama, horror, comedy, period pieces, romantic films, rom-coms, every single thing that comes out. They have to see and write a review on it or do a YouTube video review on it. Yeah. That, I feel, is kind of the job of a film critic. So, do you feel that way, that a professional film critic should have to write and critique every single film and give their honest opinion. Whether it's bad, whether it's terrible, whether it's good, whether it's decent, whether it has a lot of problems or has a lot of potential to be good. And I think that's important. You know, you should be, if you're a film critic, you should be able to give your honest opinion on the film. If you think it sucks, it sucks, you know. Explain why it sucks, what you feel like could have did better or what they should have did better here, you know. Give your opinions, you know. Your honest opinions. You should be able to say if a movie is garbage. You should be able to just go off on it if it's just a complete dumpster fire, you know. Like, why shouldn't you be able to do that, you know? So that's just my opinion, of course. What I like to know what your opinions are out there in the chat, you know. Let's talk about it. But yeah, because I feel like if film critics are not allowed to give their honest opinion about something, how are these people going to learn that make these movies, you know? They're just going to make the same mistakes over and over, you know? Someone has to tell them that you're not doing this right. You're doing a terrible job. Stop it, you know? Try something different, you know? Learn from your mistakes instead of just keep... Because a lot of certain directors will just keep knocking out the same garbage over and over. You know, you get these kind of small independent films that, you know, they're not trying to make a good movie. You know, there's people that aren't even trying to make a good movie. They're just knocking out these quick cash grab films that are just kind of product and lazy, and, you know, it's like they don't even care, you know. But there's people that actually care, that make bad films, you know, like take Ed Wood for example, you know. He was passionate about film and he was trying his damnedest to make a good movie. It just happened that he was not good at it. He was terrible. So, but he did whatever he wanted to do, you know. How are people going to learn if from the mistakes and make a good movie if people just tell them, yeah, it's okay, if film critics are not allowed to say how they feel, you know, and critique something that they feel is bad, or, you know, or what they can do to improve, or you know. And I think that's crazy, you know. A film critic needs to do their job and be honest and give their honest thoughts on a film, because I know that's what I want to see. Anytime I see a movie, like go to the theater and see a movie, I want to see, you know, a film critic's thoughts about it, or before I see a film, you know. Like I said, I respect the opinions of film critics, and a lot of times film critics can keep me from seeing a movie, can keep me from wasting my money on a movie that's just pure garbage, you know. And I won't. I will stay away from the theater, because if you get a film that 99% of critics say is garbage, chances are they're right, you know. So if anytime I've ever gone to a movie, because even after all the critics say it's terrible, I've always gone like, you know what, they were right. You know, this is garbage. So, you know, I've learned from my mistakes. You know, even like, I might get excited about a film like Madam Web, you know, like, oh, it's a superhero movie. I really love that character. I love Spider-Man. You know, I really excited about this. I want to go see it. I don't care what any critic says. I don't care about anything. I'm just going to go see it no matter what. And then I go see it and it's garbage, just like all the critics say. So, you know, and I just wasted my money on this. I wasted 2 hours of my life on this terrible, terrible movie. So yeah. And I'm going to use an example of a director that I have issues with, that I think has a lot of potential to be a great director, but his films are just not good because he never learns from his mistakes, and that is Rob Zombie. He's a guy who, I loved his music back in the day. I loved White Zombie and some of his solo stuff. And as a director, he's someone that I feel has a lot of potential. I like his direction style. But what always gets in the way of his movies is his writing. He is not a good writer. Anytime you watch one of Rob Zombie's movies, they always have these horrible, cringe-worthy dialogue, and it's like, oh, it's so frustrating to watch a Rob Zombie movie for me, because he's just got a lot of talent, and he's very creative, and the way he shoots the films, his directing style is very interesting, But every time he gets in his own way, because he insists on writing every movie he does. And that's why I feel he's never done a good movie, because he insists on doing the writing. He doesn't want anyone to get in the way of his vision of the film, what he feels his vision is. And I think that's his problem. That's why I've never liked the Rob Zombie movie completely, because, I don't think he's a good writer. And so I feel like he never learns from his mistakes, no matter how many people tell him, no matter how many people say, you should think about hiring a writer, just be a director, simply let someone else direct your films. You can come up with the initial story, but let someone else write the screenplay, and then you could have a really good movie if you got the right person writing the screenplay and shaping your vision of the story. So yeah, that's what I feel. That's kind of my opinion about it. So yeah, I'm not here to bash Chris Stuckman. I still am a fan, and I'll still continue to watch his videos, but when it comes to this particular video he did, I don't necessarily agree with what he was saying, the point. I get the point he's trying to make, and yes, I do feel that sometimes major studios can maybe get a little too involved in the movie making process, and sometimes they can throw their weight around, and but I feel like a good director and a good storyteller can kind of rise above that. Either that or just quit the film. Don't do it. Do you want your name associated with this terrible movie that the studio got involved with and ruined? I feel like if you're a good enough filmmaker and you're creative enough, you can still find a way to put your vision out there, and you can't completely blame the film studio for bad directing or the way a film is shot. And that's what a lot of people are saying about Madam Web, is that it's shot really bad, the editing is really bad, so you can't completely blame the film studio on that. They didn't direct the film. They didn't edit the film. So yeah, it's like, I don't completely agree with what he's saying, but I understand where he's coming from. Another reason is because he's becoming an independent filmmaker, and I feel like he might be looking at it from the perspective of an independent filmmaker. Now, that's the thing, maybe he's worried about, if he makes a film, an indie film, is he going to care about what the critics think, or is he going to ignore them, or is he going to learn from them, or is he going to listen to them? He might be looking at it from that perspective, and that's another thing about independent film, It's the same kind of thing, To me, when a film is bad, it's bad. Doesn't matter to me whether it's an indie film or a big corporate studio film, a big Hollywood budget film or a low budget film. A bad film is a bad film to me. I feel like you can do a great film with barely any budget. I mean, look at one of my favorite films of all time, Halloween. You know, that was an independent film and only cost $300,000 to make, but the film is phenomenal. It's a masterpiece, you know. So, you know, yeah, so I feel like, you know, even with a small budget, you can make a great movie if you have the passion for the project, you know. Because not all these indie films are passionate about what they do or have great vision. Sometimes they just knock out garbage to try and make a buck. Like, look at this indie films like Mickey Mouse Trap coming out, or Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. You know, you think they're actually creative artists, these directors, you know. No, they're just trying to cash in on the success of a property that was once owned by Disney, so they're trying to make some money off that, you know. But yeah, some of them, you know, they end up getting released in the theater and making a lot of money just because it's based on an old Disney character or something, you know. They figure there's an audience for it somewhere, you know. and a lot of times there is, you know. There's an audience for bad films, you know. Some people love bad films and that they enjoy cheap, crappy, terrible movies. There's an audience for that somewhere, you know. I know I enjoy a guilty pleasure once in a while, like, say, like the Ed Wood films, or, you know. Yeah, there is kind of a place for cheesy, trashy films, you know. So yeah. But I feel like if you're a film critic, you know, you should be able to give your honest opinion, you know, no matter what, you know. And I respect that. And I respect film critics, you know. I'm just not like, oh, I don't care what the hell they say, you know. They kind of influence my decision to go see a movie or not. And I admire that. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you you one of these people that, you know, you're just gonna see a movie that you're excited to see no matter what the film critics say, you know, you don't care about what film critics say, you're just gonna see a movie no matter what just because you want to see it, because it's about some character you like from the comics or whatever, you know. If you get excited about a movie, you're just gonna see it no matter what, or you're going to listen to what film critics say. Me personally, I do. I have a lot of respect for film critics, and yeah, they do influence my decision whether I want to go see a movie or not. And that whether it's a film critic that writes for a newspaper article or if it's a film critic on YouTube. Yeah, anytime I go see a movie too, I always look for the YouTube video of that review, you know. Either afterwards or before. I might see the spoiler-free review beforehand, and then after I'll go watch the spoiler-filled review, you know. It's so much fun to me because I love film. Film is so much fun. It's so much fun to talk about. Yeah. So, yeah, food for thought, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below about this discussion, and let's have a good talk about it. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorcona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorcona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorcona.com.